Before we begin the episode, I would like to thank our sponsor, ActiMet, an athlete wellness and performance monitoring system. ActiMet allows players to share their training load, training intensity and highlight issues away from sport, empowering management to help players in a safe, secure and private manner. Players input their performance and wellness data on an easy-to-use mobile app. ActiMet is an affordable monitoring system at less than €50 a month and is currently used by county and All-Ireland champions and over 50 soccer academies worldwide. For more information, please visit actimet.com for more. Welcome back to the Sideline Live podcast. You can follow us over on Twitter and Instagram at the Sideline Live. We'd love to hear from you. Episode 68, I am delighted to be joined by professional basketball player and Senior Irish International Pat Lyons. On this episode we discuss moving to a UK academy, college opportunities and following his basketball dreams. Pat also shares a lovely story about how the podcast impacted his career, so I hope you enjoy. Hi Paddy, thanks a million for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks very much for having me on. I love the page and I love the podcast, so it's an honour to be here.
Thank you very much, I really appreciate that. Kind of going back to what I usually do, would you be able to give a bit of a 30-second elevator pitch for the listeners who might not know who you are?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Patrick Lyons and I'm from Moycullen in Galway. I grew up there playing basketball. I went to school in Galway. After doing my leaving cert, I spent 2 years away pursuing some basketball dreams. And now, after about 5 years being back in Ireland, studying and playing basketball in the Super League level with Moycullen, I'm off again pursuing some more hoops dreams. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. I like to play basketball. It's a big part of my life. And yeah, that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm playing professional basketball in Germany.
Brilliant. So where did the dream start? What age were you and who put the ball in your hand for the first time?
I'd say it was my brother and sister that put the ball in my hand in the first time. Like I said, I grew up in Moycullen, so it's a big basketball village. It's a big sporting village. So I think even if they weren't playing, there was a good chance for me to start in the club there. But yeah, my brother and sister, they played before me, so I followed those two.
Exactly. Like many sporting people, I think the siblings play a big opportunity or a big role in their development. But outside of your family, was there any particular coach or player or anyone that had quite an influence on your career?
Wow, yeah, a lot. There's the many coaches and players and role models and mentors or whatever that influenced my career for sure. It's a long list, but I suppose in the beginning it would have been the local people from my club in Moycullen, the guys playing at the men's National League level or Super League level. And I had obviously some really key coaches in my development. Jerry Nihal was a big coach of mine for a lot of my underage career. And I had Tom O'Malley in the Bish as well. He was another huge mentor. And all the coaches I've had around those two others, played a big role for me.
Mm-hmm. When did you start to take the sport seriously and kind of not just show up to training, but you're practicing outside of training hours? You're probably showing up a little bit early, staying a little bit late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, trying to think now. I suppose when I was younger, I played lots of sports, as many do. Played a bit of GAA, both football and hurling, as well as basketball, obviously, and dabbled in a few other sports as well. So when did I start taking basketball seriously? I suppose when I was getting into my teenage years, probably 12, 13. Still kept some of the other sports up, but basketball kind of became my favorite one. And we had a hoop at the side of the house. I was very lucky. So I'd spent a lot of time doing my own stuff there. Yeah, so it's probably around 12 or 13 when it really started getting serious for me.
Moycullen have a good GA team, don't they? Or am I wrong?
Do indeed, yeah. Moycullen have them. Yeah. I'm very proud to be from Moycullen.
Moycullen are the best sporting town in Ireland.
Absolutely, you're right there. No, I mean they won the senior championship there last year, and they had another good campaign
Yeah.
this year. They're playing senior football. They've just been qualified for senior hurling. We've got some of the world's best handball players from Moycullen. Martin
You're
Mulcairns,
just
honestly, he's
selling.
one.
You're selling Moy Cullen now.
I'm telling you, and I mean, like we're a small village. I mean, I mean, this. I told you I'm very proud to be from there, but like, there's a reason I'm proud. Like, it's a small village in the west of Ireland, where for the size we have, like, the village produces a lot of good sporting talent, across the board. So, I mean,
Mhm.
I am selling it obviously, but
Mhm.
I'm very proud from
You're
it.
getting commission.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think for such a small town, like you see these pockets around the country that might have quite a small population but have these phenomenal teams across multiple sports, not even basketball. Why do you think Moycullen is so kind of why is it so sporty and why are they so successful?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, from only what I can experience, so the people that I've ever worked with or played with or learned from in sport, it's just there's an incredible amount of passion in the village for all the different sports. And like for each of the sports, there's like a couple of key families that really have the, you know, driven the whole thing really. And then I suppose like when you have such energy and passion, it kind of is contagious. So then other people kind of fall in as well, and they all want to chip in. So like, I mean, there's more like, and I used to work in one of the pubs in my Cullen as well, so I got to know like all the different circles of different people and all the work that gets put in, and I think that plays a big role. And obviously, there's passion in lots of places around the country, but yeah, I don't know, like that's probably a big thing. I don't think there's anything secret in the water or something like that that makes it successful, but like, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. I
Yeah.
really like it, and I think there's actually more for the village. I think we can even do even more and be
Mhm.
better. But I think it's just a special place in that way.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just interesting because you see maybe some of the bigger towns not having so much success, and then these places that have half the population are flying and stuff. So it's just interesting. But you were always a standout player, I guess. Growing up, you had multiple All Ireland club titles, schools titles, and you were called up to the Irish team for under 16. Talk us through those years of that success at school and kind of getting that first call up to the Irish squad.
Yeah, it's a while ago now to look back on, but as you said, yeah, I was lucky. I had good teams to play on, both the club and school, so we were very successful. We, I think the success sort of started happening when we started going to the Cork County Board tournaments with the basketball team. At least,
Mm-hmm.
we'd go. I think we went maybe under 12 or under 13 as our first ones, and in our heads at the time, it's like these are the best teams that are going to these tournaments, and we were winning the tournaments. So like we kind of got very confident then and said, oh well, if we're winning these consistently, we're obviously up there. And then it sort of happened as well in school. We won the national titles, and then yeah, naturally it developed. Then there was tryouts for national teams, and I was lucky enough to be selected at under 16. That was my first time experiencing wearing the green jersey, let's say.
And what's it like representing your country for the first time and hearing the anthem? And does it drive you to want even more success and to kind of? I've heard it's kind of like you get there and it's like, well, I just want this more and more. You're not satisfied with doing it once.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of both. Like it's a bit surreal, and I mean, when I look back on it at under 16 level, we're still kids at that age,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's a lot of pressure, I think, for kids at that age to, the big
Mm-hmm.
lights are on now when I'm playing at the European Championships and that kind of thing. So like I it's fantastic, and it's a huge honor. And yeah, I mean you hear the anthem, and you feel really proud. But I think as well, when you're that age, you have to try focus on like enjoying that moment as well, and like taking it all in, because like sometimes you can just get caught up on trying to perform. But
Yeah.
no, definitely as well, as you said, like when you do get that taste for it, and you get to see what other countries are producing, and you get to play against these other teams, um yeah, you kind of want to do that more. As you said, you kind of get hungry to continue at that level and see what can go beyond that if you can play at higher levels even than that. So yeah,
Hmm.
it was a cool
Hmm.
experience.
For any of the younger players listening, is there a particular underrated skill, or something we're overlooking that you would see in the game that you don't really understand why people aren't paying attention to it?
Hmm. Well, so I mean, I've done a bit of skills coaching, as well as working on my own game and looking at my own
Hmm.
teammates and that. But like, I've done a bit of skills coaching in my own club and then with Puff Summers as well over the years. And like,
Hmm.
every skill or whatever has its own, you know, importance. But like, I think like for one thing, I think if somebody is really good at cutting, I feel like for some reason like that's something that people think, oh, it's just it's not that important. But I think
Yeah.
the people who are really, really good at cutting off the ball or cutting like to get open or cutting into a scoring position, I think the people who are really good at that, it's like really valuable. And I think it's something that does require skill and it requires a good reading of the game and good footwork. Um, so yeah, that's the one I'll go with, cutting.
That's a good one. That's a good answer. And when you're, if how do you teach that? Because you mentioned read the game, and I kind of spoke to Jordan about that, and it's very hard to teach like. I guess what I would see it would just come down to a lot of playing experience to be able to recognize situations or recognize maybe an overload on one side and you cut the other side.
Yeah, yeah, it is a difficult one, but I like you're right in that way. I think there's a lot of you have to learn about different situations that come up on the court. And I think that is something that can be practiced and sort of taught by a coach is saying, okay, we're going to simulate what's happening here in this situation, and you're going to look to
Mm.
see what your defender does. If he turns his head this way or he or she turns his head that way, you can cut into this space. Um, and then it's just kind of practice. But obviously, like there's loads of other things you can go away on your own and watch film. I think like watching other people do things like just observing other players is like a really good way to learn, pick up anything. Still do that no matter what skill it is. I'll be looking up some players that I like what they do, and it's just like seeing it happen, trying to visualize it, and repeating it and that kind of thing. So yeah.
When did you start looking at video, and what sort of players would you be looking up to kind of find clips of or games of?
Um, Let me think about that. I suppose looking up video just because I was like interested and entertained and that kind of thing, obviously when I was younger, but then I suppose applying it then, I don't know what age I would have been when I started looking up videos, not just because I was, being entertained, but like trying to apply what they're doing and kind of analyzing
Okay.
it, let's say.
Yeah.
I'd say that probably happened, yeah, when I started getting on those sort of national team stuff where you start looking at scouting videos and scouting reports, and then you kind of that helps you understand, okay, I look at film now in preparation for a game and I'm looking for people's tendencies and that, and then you just kind of get better and better. So I guess nowadays, some of the big names that I love to watch, just highlights of and just different things they might be doing. Like you have Nick Calates who plays for Barcelona. He's a point guard. Um, what's his name? Kevin Pangos. He's a Canadian. He's now been signed with the Cavaliers. I watched a little bit of his EuroLeague campaign last year, and he's an incredible point guard as well. I like Drew Holiday in the NBA. Um, and then Milos Teodosic, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Luka Doncic, all those kind of guys too. Like I love watching those guys and seeing how they're picking off passes and reading the game.
Out of interest, then you mentioned practicing by yourself. Puff Summers told me you had a load of workout sheets. Talk us through where that idea came from and what sort of workouts would you structure, let's say, in maybe the shots you were taking.
Yeah, Puff is actually he played a big role in that back in the day. Puff actually played for Moycullen in the Super League in 2009, 2010. So I was a young lad at that point, and as many people do with when Puff is in the area, they gravitate towards him, and he, as many people have seen, he no matter where he goes, like he just works out with people, and I'm trying to say, what does he do? Like
It's infectious, kind of what he does.
yeah, it's hard to put into words just like how impactful he's been in different communities around the country. I think, some people might take it for granted sometimes. In fairness, he's done an amazing job with helping basketball grow in this country in the last however many years. But I digress. Yeah, when he was playing with Mike Cullen, I started following him around, asking him questions, and he started drawing up some ball handling workouts for me on some sheets. That's kind of how it started, and it would be maybe a copybook page. He might rip it out and draw out a few, reps of different skilled ball handling stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I actually found one of those from that year. I found one there like last year, and I sent him a photograph of it. I still had it in a little plastic pocket, but yeah, he sort of started that off for me, working with just like trying to draw out your workout, sort of like planning it out so that you're not just shooting aimlessly or not just working on
Mm-hmm.
something aimlessly, and like actually trying to, set out what are you trying to do in this hour at the basket, or what are you trying to do here, and like map it out.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that a lot through my teenage years, because I guess you're juggling lots of sports, you're juggling school and that kind of thing, and it's a good
Yeah.
way to sort of track your sort of progress. You can actually look
Yeah.
back and say, okay, this is work that I have done, and it's different to
Yeah.
just, oh yeah, I
It helps build
shot
your
around or
confidence.
something. Absolutely, yeah. It's the same with anything, I suppose. Setting a goal for yourself and working on it and keeping track of it, it all feeds into being more confident then.
You went to the UK, and I know the dream was to go to the States, but talk us through that opportunity. And a lot has changed between now and then in terms of there's a lot more Irish kids going over. Social media is now playing a really big role. Just a quick shout out to the JUCO advocate on Twitter. He's brilliant he always tweets about Irish kids. And there's a couple of people doing that I can't remember the names, but I have to give them credit
Mm.
as well. How did that opportunity come up, and how did you navigate where you wanted to go?
Yeah, and yeah, just echo what you said as well. It's fantastic what's happening at the moment on social media, and like the exposure that uh, Irish players are getting around. It's great to see, even like for me, but for younger players too, to see that it helps to kind of gather momentum and increase
Mm-hmm.
the identity of Irish players internationally. So yeah, just echo what you said as well. Shout out to some of those channels and different people, and that includes you too. You're doing that with your podcast. Your
Oh, thanks a million.
you know, shout out to you too.
Try my best.
But yeah, but yeah, for me, I went to Barking Abbey Academy in London. That was after my leaving cert year, and yeah, as you said, the aim was to sort of go to the US originally. That was the goal, to go to the US and try go to college over there with basketball. So Barking Abbey at the time seemed like a good stepping stone for me. It was
Mm-hmm.
it was kind of almost like taking a year in prep school in the US as a sort of comparison. And it came about, well, yeah, as I said, we talked about Puff. He kind of helped me to get the ball moving there because he had known, he played in the UK for a year, and he knew one of the coaches there. But also there were three Irish guys playing there the year before me. So yeah, that's how I was aware of it. And then I reached out and got talking, and went through a few things, sending tape and resume and that kind of stuff, and that's how it came about. And yeah, it was fantastic experience to go away at the age of 18, and um
Mm-hmm.
the academy set up over there is quite interesting too. So it's good to see, as you said, there's more people going over there now and trying it out. So yeah.
Out of interest, if there's anyone listening that is looking at maybe going abroad, whether it's the UK, Europe, or America, what advice would you give them around picking a place and kind of just even trying to settle over there, because it can be very difficult, particularly maybe as a teenager?
Yeah, it's an important thing to think about, and I think sometimes uh sometimes we can be quick to jump on something, as like jump at an opportunity without fully sort of looking at it, and we might think, oh, this is fantastic, I'm going to take it, and then you arrive somewhere that's just maybe not the
Doesn't
best
fit.
situation for you. Yeah, and like I suppose in the different years that I have gone away to places, it's not always like uh rainbows and sunshine, as some people might say. Like it can be lonely, and if things aren't
Yeah.
going well and you're away from your family and stuff, like it's not easy, it's not always easy. It's very enjoyable and it's challenging, but it's not easy. So I think if somebody was
Hmm.
just looking to go abroad, um I would think the first step is to be very clear with yourself on what actually you're trying to do, or like what you're looking for out of the experience.
Hmm.
um trying to trying to be sure about, like, what actually am I trying to achieve by doing this? Because I think if you're not fully clear on what you want to get out of it, it's hard to manage sort of the expectations, or hard to manage sort of the environment if when you get there, if you're not fully clear on what it is you want. And then, yeah,
Hmm.
I think, yeah, if there's just reaching out to people who may have gone out before you, who may not have gone to that particular area, but at least have maybe traveled abroad, or played basketball abroad, or in that country or something like that. Just, people are generally very helpful, in no matter who you talk to, they're generally helpful. And I think just try to get to know a little bit more about the area, maybe just before you go jumping into something.
From your experience in the UK, if we were to set up a official Basketball Ireland academy in Ireland, because there's like I don't see it happening maybe soon, but there's kind of been talk. People, on Instagram, and Twitter, everyone's saying we need an academy, need an academy. What
Yeah.
do you think we should look to do? And from your experience, like what do you think it'll take to be a very successful academy? Because it like our population and the interest of the sport isn't on par at all with the UK. Like they seem to just be miles ahead. So what do you think it would take to be a successful academy here in Ireland?
Mm. Yeah, it's a big question, for sure. Um, it's a tough one to answer, to be honest. I wouldn't know. Like, even with the little bit I got to experience, like, I don't know how we would go about doing it. And like, what I don't know about the UK is I don't know who set up the first one, and I don't know who made the decision to start setting up academies over there, because I think like making the decision to start it can be, that's the tougher one. If there's other people already setting up academies, it's easier to fall in behind them. But
Yeah.
um, for Ireland, yeah, I wonder, like, I suppose you'd need to partner with a school, and I suppose, like I said, with somebody trying to go off somewhere before making a decision, I would think an academy, for me, anyways, I would need to think that they need to be very clear on what the academy is trying to achieve. It's setting out sort of a clear objective, because like you can have an academy for different reasons,
Yeah.
and if an academy is being set up just to send players abroad, if that's their thing, like I think how you would go about setting up something like that would be different to maybe an academy that wants to, uh, I don't know, grow the level of basketball domestically in Ireland or whatever. Maybe you want to do a hybrid of both, but uh, I think an academy would need to be very clear on what they're trying to achieve, in order for people to at least like actually buy into it. Because like even if you made it, if people didn't get the right vibe off it, then they might not buy into it. But
Hmm.
I don't know. It's a tough question. I'd say there's a lot of people with some good, interesting opinions across the social media. You might have to put that one out there
Yeah,
to
exactly.
the masses.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good maybe panel podcast or Instagram poll for people to answer. What was the training like in the UK? S&C wise, individually, team wise, what was the schedule like?
Uh, what was the schedule like? Yeah, it was a huge step up to what I would have done up until that point. And that was like one of the big reasons, I suppose, why I wanted to go over there. And I was aware of what it was like, having spoken to the coaches, spoken to the Irish guys that were there before me, et cetera, et cetera. So we trained a lot. Like I think we had team practice every evening, more or less. And then on top of that, like you were studying while you were there. It was an academy, so like I was doing the A level sort of system while I was there, and the academy did a great job at looking at your schedule for the week because you'd often have free periods around the day. That was just how the school was set up. So within your free periods, you might throughout your week you might get two, maybe a third individual workout on the court, and then you might get two S&C sessions as well. One guided with the S&C coach, and then one that he'd give you a program and follow. So like to me
Okay.
that was like amazing because like I was surrounded by a load of players that really loved basketball, wanted to get to the next level, and then I was in this place that I could train like all like so much more than I could train at home. And then just like having individual sessions coached to me and learning about skills, and then like the S&C that I was like the coach we had for S&C was fantastic as well. So it was I learned so much and how to lift and technique and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of yeah, that was sort of how it worked out for the week, sort of, and games on the weekend then obviously.
You mentioned kind of having loads of high level players around you. I think you were saying before one of your teammates had this big spreadsheet of all the colleges, and you just ended. I think was it over 400 or something?
Yeah, there was. I think it had been passed down a couple of seasons from the different guys, and I was lucky enough that they thought I could have the sheet as well. So yeah, it was
Yeah.
basically like a breakdown of all the NCAA Division One and Division Two schools, and it was spreadsheets and broken down into conferences, and then for each school it would have sort of any sort of contact person that they could find. So it might be the head
Wow.
coach or it might be the athletic director, and then it would have the email address and it'd have the phone number and any other notes. So it was just like a sort of a database, I suppose, And when I was doing my own, what would you say, trying to reach out to coaches and schools and that kind of thing,
Yeah.
it was a really valuable document at the time. So yeah, that was one big perk.
Yeah. Exactly. Out of interest, if there's any younger players listening, how when you're sending that first email, let's say to one of the colleges,
Yeah.
what do you put in the email? I know that's a really stupid question, but what do you actually put in it?
No, it's not stupid. Like, and it's not just for trying to talk to a coach or whatever. It's like applying for a job or whatever, It's if you're trying to reach out to somebody for anything, it's not a stupid question. Um, I suppose I don't know if I have the right answer, but in my opinion, I think it's important to introduce yourself, obviously. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you have to,
You don't
I guess,
say what's up. It's a
yeah,
hi
it's a
there. To
formal,
whom it may concern.
it's
Yeah.
a formal, it's dear coach, whoever, or,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a formal greeting. This is like you're putting you need to put your best foot. How does the term go? You need to put, your best
The best
self
foot forward.
forward. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say. Um, but at the same time, you have to be conscious. You don't want to write something that's so long because these coaches are getting emails from all over the world every day. So it needs to be like short and snappy, but also like giving them an insight into who you are, what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I mean, dear coach, whoever, I'm Patrick, I'm from Ireland. I'm looking to play at your program, or I like your program, or whatever. And explain your, little bio about yourself. And then I guess it's important that you have a basketball resume done up, which would be like a CV of your
Mm-hmm.
basketball achievements. And then most schools and coaches or whatever, they'll need to see film of you. So if it's a highlight tape and probably full game tape as well, um,
Okay.
so they need to have, I guess that is a given. You need to have those things when you send any email to anyone, just for them to even consider you, because they need to see what you look like, I suppose, on the court. But then, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
just make sure that your email is polite and, to the point of what you're trying to do. But also, and then, yeah, just make sure it's not so long as well that they brush over it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean.
But as
And
I
what's
said,
that process? What was that process?
I might not be right as
Yeah.
well, but that's just my
Yeah.
opinion.
Exactly. But it's good to get an insight into that. And what was it like getting responses from coaches or interacting with them? Not even like, even just having interest from people. What's that like? How do you manage that process?
Yeah, it's exciting. Like and it doesn't always just happen via email. Like I remember at the time I had different coaches, might have messaged me on Facebook or something at the time. So it's exciting, you get chatting back and forth and they say, oh, this is what I'm potentially can offer you or whatever. But yeah, I suppose at the same time, it's important not to get too excited too quickly because like some coaches can just be stringing you along as well. Um,
Okay.
I didn't get a whole lot of communication, or I didn't, as we might talk about it, I didn't get like any big star offers that I was looking for. Um, but yeah, I think just see if you have anyone around you that can help you. Like it's important to just be able to continue the conversation and see how they can go and see what they may be able to offer. And then I guess it develops that way.
Did the academy in the UK have any connections that you could use for coaches, or was it mainly off your own bat?
Yeah, so Barking Abbey and a lot of the academies, they do have a lot of good connections, and a lot of they send a lot of players to the US every year. And we even would have, I remember, like we had a couple of coaches from the US fly into the academy to like, look at our practice or watch a game. Yeah, so that was pretty exciting. But like, I guess suppose I quickly learned, and this is fine. That was just the way the situation was. But I quickly learned that there was a few kind of key guys from our team that were sort of the academy were focused on because they were going to be going to the high D1 schools. So a lot of the energy that they would have been putting towards our group's recruitment would have been on those couple of key guys more so than I wasn't one of those key guys.
Yeah,
So I found
I know what you
personally that,
mean.
yeah, so like personally, I found that like perhaps I didn't have as much help or support than some of the other guys, but like I understood that too, it's
Hmm.
they're more likely to get a scholarship and they're projected to go to a big school. They need to get sorted. So you can only have so much
Hmm.
time. So then, yeah, that left me having to do a lot of my own sort of work on that. But in fairness, like they
Hmm.
still did support me and they did, do their best to reach out for me when they could. Don't get me wrong on that, but that's just something
Hmm.
natural, and that's something I had to journey with too. It's like you go over there and you think it's going to be easy, but like there's going to be people better than you. Like they're going to need to have the
Exactly.
attention ahead of you. So that's all part of the journey.
And it makes sense for the academy. Like I can see their perspective as well.
Definitely, yeah.
The bigger the school, like that just looks good for them, and then they'll get more players in. So, and that'll happen anywhere, I think, really. But I know what you mean. It's also that realization. Like I know Paul Cummins was saying it on his podcast with Hoopfolio. He was saying, he was the most athletic player in Ireland at his
Hmm.
age. But sure, when he went to the States, he was nowhere near the best, obviously, because it's just a different level. So,
Yeah.
how do you find, like, what advice would you give to players that are trying to come to terms with, I don't know if that's the right word, but just kind of be okay with now transitioning from potentially one of the top players in Ireland to not being a top player on their team, never mind in a region, let's say.
Yeah, I suppose, and like it's a tough one, and it's almost like when you go from primary school into secondary school, you go from being like the big boss in sixth class, and then you go
Yeah,
to first year and you're bottom of the pile. Maybe not the bottom of the pile with basketball, but I don't know. I think it can be easier and easier to manage if you're just sort of aware of it, I guess, before you go over and don't have expectations that are too so high. Like if you go, you can go
yeah,
into that situation a couple of different ways. You can go into that situation kind of saying to yourself, "Oh, I'm the best," and like these people don't know anything, and I'm gonna be just fine. Or you can go in and say, "Actually, this is amazing. I get to now work towards all these other people who are way better than me, and I get to like grow so much more. I'm like, my ceiling has just been increased." Because I'm in a new
yeah.
environment. So like it depends how you approach it. Um, and I think that can be said for a lot of things. But yeah, I think if you go in with the mindset of this is actually a good step for me, you'll get more out of it. And if you go to somewhere like the
Hmm.
UK or the US, as Paul Cummins is saying, the athleticism goes through the roof. That challenges you then to look at your own game and look at your own sort of abilities and think, okay, well, how can I separate myself, or what can I work on to create a gap in another way if it's, more
Hmm.
skill based or working on your athleticism, or that kind of thing. So yeah, I think you just need to come into it with that mindset.
So how did you end up at Tennessee Temple University in Chattanooga, Tennessee? I think I have Chattanooga right.
Yeah, you got the name right. Well done. It's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah, I went to Tennessee Temple. It no longer exists. It's now closed down. And I went
Not
there
because of
after
you,
going to
just
Barking
saying.
Abbey, not because of me. And yeah, I will say, after speaking about Barking Abbey and maybe not getting as much attention as the other big guys, they actually helped me get to this school. Um,
Mhm.
which I will say they did help me get that school, and they put it in front of me, so they did their job in one way. But how did I get there? It was late in the summer. My coach from Barking contacted me about this school, and asked me if I'd be interested to go. And it was very late in the summer, so like there was like a really short window. So he just put me in touch with the coach, and I spoke to him. And I actually have dual citizenship with Ireland and the US, so there was like he was able to,
Okay.
yeah. So it was like he was able to, as the school were able to treat me as like an American student, so it was easier for them
Yeah.
to sort of I suppose get me into school. But the problem was, like, there
Hmm.
was very little time before like the start of the semester and going over. And like it was this random town in Tennessee that I didn't know. And it was like, oh, do you want to come? You might have to get here like next week. And there's a lot of paperwork due and all this kind of stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I thought about it quickly. I did tell him I would like to go, and give it a go. But as it turned out, there just wasn't enough time before the first semester to get everything sorted. So he said, no
Hmm.
worries, you can join at the semester break. And that's what I did. I went over I played half a season sort of with Mike Cullen again, and I went over halfway through the year.
So what's it like going over there, and even like team practices are a little bit different, obviously, because it's a different level, and even like the different commitments you have to do. Like you mentioned there, you have to pray twice a week. There's prayers before and after practice. How did you find that whole experience?
Yeah, so obviously my experience was um, probably a bit unique, because it's not like the run of the mill one going to an NCAA Division One or something like that. So yeah, the school was like really strongly affiliated with the Baptist Church, and I was told about that before going over. And just kind of, it was explained to me, hey, look, this is part of coming here. We're not going to force our religion on you. We're not going to make you convert, let's say, but like, you'll have to respect our rules.
Hmm.
And I had to think about that, making my decision. Is that something I'm open to? And I said, they're going to give me a chance, and I'm not going to let someone else's sort of beliefs get in the way of my chance to go. But yeah, so like it was great. Like, we trained every day, and we had open access to the gym and that kind of thing. But as you said, yeah, in my school, we had to go to church twice a week on campus, and we would pray. Yeah, I think we would pray every practice, either before or after, and then at games as well. And even like a lot of the teams we would have played in that part of the country were also, affiliated with some branch of Christianity. So often we'd finish a game,
Okay.
and we would pray with the other team in the middle of the court, like after the game.
All right.
Yeah, so that was interesting as well. But
Yeah.
like I said, it wasn't. There was something I had to think about, but like, to
It's
me,
just it's not something that you'll base your decision off, but you need to know that going in, that even like that's like you couldn't imagine two Super League teams like just gathering together maybe at the end of a really hard game. I don't think that'll happen.
yeah, maybe not, no, but like, yeah, I mean, I suppose even going away to London opened my eyes more to people of different faiths and people of different just backgrounds and that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
I sort of I was more open to the thing of like, yeah, people can believe different things to me, or people can have different sort of walks of life, and if you can just have a common respect for each other, then it's fine. It's grand. And
Yeah, exactly.
I came with that attitude when I went over there, and it was funny. Like, I enjoyed actually some of the discussions because sometimes they were very passionate about their beliefs, and I'd listen to what they have to say. And on whatever I learned growing up in school in Ireland, I would have different perceptions of things, and I enjoyed discussing things with them and challenging them on some of their thoughts and say, oh, well, how did you ever look at maybe this story that in the Bible actually says this, or did you ever think maybe it says this? And people actually enjoyed that. Like, and I just said, look, this is just like I said, it was just somebody else's opinion on things, and it was not a part of my experience, and it was good.
Hmm.
And at the same time, I still had a great college experience because like there was a big Division 1 school around the corner. Yeah, it was the University of Tennessee at
Oh, okay.
Chattanooga. Yeah, like it was right like around this corner. Yeah, it was a huge big D1 school, and like for your traditional sort of American college experiences that you might see or whatever, like
Yeah.
I still got to enjoy that kind of side of the experience too. But yeah, it was only for a few
Hmm.
months really because, as I said, the school closed down. But yeah,
Hmm.
that was a shame.
Did you get to go to? Yeah, exactly. But did you get to go to any of the University of Tennessee games at all? Could you kind of go in? Maybe I don't think they'd let you into practice, but could you kind of go in and kind of see the basketball side of things?
No, I couldn't. And yeah, I'll just be clear. It was the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, so UTC. It's different to
Oh,
University of
sorry.
Tennessee. No, I had the same.
Oh,
I had
sorry,
to,
sorry.
I had the same when I went over first. But no, I wanted to get to a game, but I suppose we were in season as well, so like was never really a
Yeah,
chance to
it's
get
hard to.
to one of their games. When the season
Hmm.
finished, some of those guys like came and played pickup at our school, like, and we played pickup games. But
Okay.
no, I didn't get to go to any of their games or see much of it. But you know, a lot of the
Hmm.
students lived around the area, so I just got to meet other students and meet different people, and go to parties and that kind of thing. And I became very famous because I
Yeah.
was the Irish guy in that part of the country. A lot of them had never seen an Irish person before, so
You're a popular guy
I'd meet
then.
these people. Well, not no, I won't go that far, but it was like, oh, are you the Irish guy? And I'm like, well, I think so. I don't think there's anyone else here.
Yeah. Very good. Basketball wise, how did you find the level and the competitiveness and the practices?
Yeah, I found this challenging. I found it another step up from what I had played in England at the NBL 1 and at the academy level. Um, I think the biggest difference I found was the style of play was different. It turned into a bit more athletic sort of isolation basketball where it was like one on one. There was less sort of the
Hmm.
team's tactics and that kind of thing. And that was a new challenge for me
Okay.
because I wasn't as athletic as some of those guys, and my sort of one-on-one isolation game, even still, it's not like a big part of my game. So I had to
Yeah.
like learn how to adjust in that way. But at the same time, I was able to bring my own sort of flair, let's say, and come in as like a European, let's say, European point guard, and sort of, I think my coach liked that I was able to come in and not just be worrying about breaking the guy's ankles in front of me. Like I was actually trying to run an offense or, drive and kick and that kind of thing. But no, it was good. It was really good experience. Played some really not good teams, and just some of the basketball in the US, like it was cool just to see that. And down south as well, like you went into some sort of really rowdy environments and rowdy away games and that kind of thing, and all that with like big student bodies shouting, roaring at you on the sidelines and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It was good. It was good and enjoyable. Yeah.
What happened with? I know the scale shut down, but in terms of your recruitment and eligibility, because you still would have had 3 years left, you were trying to maybe transfer or kind of pick up other offers. How did that? How did that go?
Yeah. So actually, when I made the decision to go there in the first place, I sort of said in my own head, I'll only give this a year at this school because academically, the quality of the education, if I was to stay there for the 4 years, I don't think my degree there would have been worth anything coming back in Ireland. So
Okay.
in my head, even if the school had stayed open, I was only going to go there for a year and then possibly see if I could hop over to another school or, yeah, continue recruitment and get picked up somewhere else. So I wasn't too
Hmm.
disappointed when it did close down. But yeah, when it closed down, there was a couple of schools in the area similar that had kind of reached out and offered me places, but then it was the same decision with academics and not being too sure, and so they weren't really. I wasn't so keen on those ones, and I went up to Boston um, in the summertime because I had some friends and family there, and actually I reached out to a former American who played. Well, he's not a yeah, sorry, yeah, an American, a former Mike Cullen basketball player, um,
Yeah.
former Mike Cullen basketball American player. Let me just get that right. I don't want to call him a former American. Yeah, I reached out to a former player from my home club who was living up in Boston. Nate Fritsch is his name, and he played at the same time as Puff, and they actually went to school together. Like they were good friends growing up in the States, and
Okay,
he was
yeah.
in Boston, and he played when I was a kid in the club. But I got his email address and I reached out to him and just said, "Hey, look, I'm coming up to Boston. I'm looking to get into a new school. I know you played up there in a school. If you had anyone I could meet or whatever, I'd love if you had any advice for me or anything at all." And like, I would tell you, like, it's still amazing to think about it now, but like, it just speaks to the kind of guy that he is and the kind of guy, any of the Americans we've had come into the club. He got back to me with so much energy, and he was like, "Oh, I'm so happy to hear you're here." He was like, "I'd love to help you out," and yeah, he really
Brilliant.
helped me looking for schools. He did up a spreadsheet. He was like contacting for me, reaching out to friends and that kind of thing. And long story short, had a couple of D3 offers up in the northeast part of the country. One or two D2 schools were interested, but couldn't give me a full scholarship. So I had a few things to consider. And
Hmm.
ultimately, I decided I'd come back to college in Galway instead because it just felt like the better option for me. I was sure of my education that I was going to get. I had kind of had a taste of the basketball experience at that point in the States. And I just said to myself, nah, I'd rather go back and play Super League and go to college in Galway. And I think it was kind of my plan B all along. And I decided to go with that in the end. So that's what happened.
Hmm. That's very good. So you came home, and I think it was maybe 2 or 3 years later, you were selected as part of the Hibernia basketball team. Just for some of the younger players that don't know what that is, what was Hibernia basketball? What competition did they play, and how did you find the whole experience?
Hibernia Basketball, yeah. So Hibernia Basketball was a team that was selected to enter into the first year of the FIBA Europe Cup. And the FIBA Europe Cup is a competition that I suppose FIBA created to compete against the EuroLeague in terms of like another European competition because
Okay.
the EuroLeague isn't owned, it's a private company. It's not a FIBA ran
Yeah.
competition. And I guess that's my understanding that FIBA wanted to launch this Europe Cup as a sort of another European, like really high European wide competition. And
Yeah.
2015-16 was the year, and that was the first year. So my understanding is FIBA probably reached out to Ireland, Basketball Ireland, and said, "We're starting this competition. Would you like to enter a team?" That's what I'm assuming. And yeah, Hibernia then was a
Hmm.
selection of sort of players from the Super League, who were from all the different teams who got together and played as one team in this competition. So I was
Hmm.
selected for that. I was very lucky to be selected. It was a fantastic experience. And my first taste at playing in a really high competition, but like playing at a European wide competition. And ultimately we didn't do too well, but it was still a good experience.
How did you find kind of going to Europe and again just seeing this another level, and just even it'll just give you a different understanding of the game, and even maybe the fans, like I've been watching clips, even like the Eurobasket pre-qualifiers for the men's, and I think there was only a couple of hundred people in the Cyprus gym, but you could kind of hear a little bit of the whistling, and you see
Mhm.
flares and all the EuroLeague clips. What's that like going over to those environments?
Yeah, it's intimidating. One, we went to Ches Nimburg was one of the teams we played against, and they were in the Czech Republic. And yeah, I think it was the Nimburg game, or maybe another game we went in Slovenia. And the crowds were crazy. I had never experienced anything like it, like huge drums and no mercy, even though we were getting, trashed by the other team. But yeah, I was like the youngest. I was, yeah, obviously one of the younger guys in the team. I wasn't on the court a whole lot. But even
Mm-hmm.
still, just the whole thing, like it was like it was professional. It was like my first look at like what a professional system looks like, or professional sort of level looks like. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like I think one of the players on one of the teams, he was the backup point guard the year we played against him. And then the following year he signed with the Knicks in the NBA. So like I was like, oh God, like it just
Wow.
shows like the level was like so high. Um, but
Yeah.
it was brilliant. And even just to play with some of the really experienced Irish guys, and some of those guys had played professionally in Europe already, like Conor Grace and Colin O'Reilly and some of those guys. Even just to be
Mm-hmm.
training with those guys and to be on teams with them and learn from those guys was fantastic for me at my age at that time.
Mm-hmm. So you played a couple of years at Mike Cullen. Talk us through kind of the path that you took to get to Germany, or to get to Germany now, and that decision to kind of try pursue a career in professional basketball.
Sure. Um, yeah, so as I said at the beginning, I spent probably about the guts of 5 years back in Ireland after the States, and I was studying and playing with Mike Cullen at the time. So I was kind of at the time at the for the first couple of years, I didn't really think about playing abroad again. I didn't really have it was kind of something in the back of my head, and I was more focused, sort of just getting my studies done. So I did my undergraduate degree and my master's degree, and actually started working kind of a full-time marketing job while playing. And as it happened, I sort of my career sort of outside of basketball was beginning to progress, and I was looking at other opportunities with my career, and that involved potentially moving country and that kind of thing. And then it sort of hit me. It was like, oh, well, if you move country, maybe to the US or something with work, you're going to be probably stop playing basketball. You'll have to stop playing competitively. And then I said, if I go for 2 years or whatever, I'll be another 2 years older, and that might be it. And then when that kind of hit me, it said, "Oh, well, actually, there's still some things you want to do with the sport." And like I just said to myself, "Okay, well, if this is coming to front of my mind now when I'm looking at these things, like I have to address it, because if this is what's coming into my mind and then I ignore it, I might regret it later on, that like didn't go out and pursue that extra little bit of like playing professionally on a contract. Like that was something I really always wanted to do when I was younger. There was a few other guys from Ireland out doing it at that moment. And I said to myself, oh, well, like I can do that, or at least I can try and do it. And like if I try it and it doesn't go well, and at least I said to myself, I tried, but I was like, if I ignore this, I'll regret it later. So yeah, I made the decision. I just kind of said to myself, right, well, what do I need to do to earn a contract over in Europe or something? What do I need to do? And just started putting my focus and energy into that. And yeah, like in other times when I was making decisions to go abroad when I was younger, I started reaching out to people who were involved in that scene, or might know people involved in that scene, and just started asking questions, getting the different bits of advice from different people. And yeah, it just sort of happened. Last year, I got my first sort of opportunity, but it was cut short with COVID, which was a challenge in itself. But no, I mean, um, I put a lot of effort in when I made the decision, and there was a lot of energy put into it. But I was really happy to actually get a contract this season, and I'm playing now, so I'm delighted. It's like a dream come true, as they say. But like, it is. So it's what I'm doing now. So
How do you find, has your approach to the game changed at all as a professional? Have you kind of noticed that side of things maybe evolve since moving from Mike Cullen?
definitely have, and it's not. I don't think it's just because I'm playing in a new place, but I think it's because now I'm at a. It's because it's my job now, and
Okay.
because I'm giving it more time, and I'm not trying to juggle my playing with my work or studies. This is the first
Hmm.
time where I've been able to just like play
Yeah.
in a long time. And as a result of that, then I'm being able to give more energy and time into learning about my game and learning about other things around my game that I can do better. And like in particular, like I'm getting really interested in like nutrition. I'm just like
Okay.
turning into a nerd about it. Like I'm really enjoying, learning about it and like trying things out. And another thing, like even like sports psychology side of things as well. Like I'm really enjoying that whole process now of like looking into that and how can I exercise my mind and train my mind to better my performance and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And I suppose that's all things that can come when I don't have other things that I have to focus on. I
Yeah.
don't have my school or work. So
Hmm.
definitely I've noticed that about my game.
Is that something that you just do off your own bat and your own time? You just research maybe different exercises or for sports psychology or different kind of nutritional advice?
No, no. I've some great friends and trainers that I've been working with. So like in terms of like my S&C for the season as well as like my nutrition, I have a friend from Moycullen who's living in Canada. James Lochnan is his name, and he helped me a lot. Just like getting into that sort of stuff. He works with sort of athletes of all elite athletes, but also other athletes in
Okay.
Canada. So he was able to help me out from that front. Also like Enda Gaffney in Galway, he's got the sports dome in Galway, and he helped me out as well from a S&C point of view. And then from psychology, I'm working a little bit, well, a lot with a friend of mine and former coach who's a sports psychologist. It's Fabian Gagliano, and he's actually Spanish, but he's based in Galway.
Okay.
And he coached one of the years at NUIG, and I've just stayed in touch with him because he's a good friend of mine. And yeah, he's been so nice to like help me out from a sports psychology point of view, and like just show me different things and teach me different techniques and different ways that I can work on that area. And then yeah,
Hmm.
with the help of those kinds of people, then I can go off and do my own research as well
Hmm.
and try new things. So
Have you
shout out
noticed
to
it?
those guys.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Have you noticed a difference at all since implementing that, or is it just so new that it's very hard to see?
Oh no, definitely, definitely have
Okay.
noticed. Yeah, 100%. Like, and that's I think why I'm enjoying becoming such a nerd about those things because like it's like it just feels like this whole new space. Like
Yeah.
I would have been aware of different things and I've been introduced to those areas before, but like never
Yeah.
at this so much of attention. And now it's like this whole new space of me that I can work on and
Yeah.
improve on, and it's like so new and sort of it's so exciting in that way. So like I'm seeing results straight away from the nutrition point of view, definitely as well. Like because we're training so much now, and like
Mm.
I have to make sure that I'm fueling my body the right way to just like be able to perform every
Yeah.
day and that kind of thing. And because it's my
Hmm.
job, um, and I'm noticing the improvements in my body and how I'm feeling. Like I'm hardly drinking coffee now, and I used to drink coffee all the time. Like, and just like as an example, and then like from the sports psychology too, like it's like it feels like this is like a cheat code or something. Like it's like wait, how come I haven't been doing this before? Like
Yeah.
it's amazing what we can do, like and what we can learn and how we can exercise our minds. And like I remember it was like a couple of I do like a bit of the like mindful meditation and that kind of thing, mindfulness meditation and that kind of stuff. And I remember one game at the start of the season, I was at the free throw line and I was taking a free throw and I like was focusing in on the hoop and I told Fabian the story. I was like, I just said to myself, "Oh my God, I've never felt like so laser focused on the basket."
Wow.
I was like, "What's going on?" And I was just figured like, is this because I've like almost like you might exercise in the gym, like I've exercised my mind at like getting better at like focusing on the task at hand. And I was at
Yeah.
the free throw line and it just felt like so locked in, and I was like, "Oh, this it was just cool, It was a cool thing to experience." So,
That's really
um,
cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Is there any,
definitely.
apart from the meditation, is there anything in kind of exercises that you've done for your mind that you've kind of, that you really like or you'd recommend or you've just found really interesting?
Well, I think mindfulness meditation is something that I find is very useful, and like
Okay.
even besides basketball or performance, just for anybody, I think it's really good. I personally find it enjoy like really beneficial because it gives you a chance to sort of I don't know, like declutter your mind a bit
Yeah.
and sort of forget everything. And I think it's important to try get into that kind of space in your day.
Hmm.
Um, but other than that, like, and I'm not the expert, but like visualization stuff, I find really good as well. And I try to do that before games and that. sort of visualize things as I want them to happen, if it's shooting or different things like that. And it all just helps in your preparation before performing. You come into the game less anxious or less worried and more locked in, let's say,
Hmm.
and different techniques you can do, like visualization stuff and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Do you feel now as a professional, because it's your job, you have this newfound responsibility of um like I'm trying to balance, like, even like I know just with my personality I have to have multiple different avenues in my life, nearly not distractions, but like, so I go from football, I have the podcast, I have college, I have other bits as
Mm.
well. How do you find it as now being that 100% responsibility of, and like being able to park, let's say, a good game or a bad game or a good win or a bad loss?
Yeah, I see. Yeah, I get what you're asking. Yeah, it's not easy, like, and that's the thing, like, and I think while it wasn't my sole focus in other times, but when I went away before and experienced similar situations, like when I was in London or in the US, and if I was in a bad rut or playing poorly,
Yeah.
while I had other things, like I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to
Hmm.
do well. And like as I said earlier, it can be lonely then when you're not doing so well and there's no one else around and you don't have much of a support network like right there with you.
Hmm.
It can be quite tough if you are in a bad way. But like I think probably because of what I experienced when I was younger, it's a bit easier now for me. Um, but like, no, I try sometimes to just find other things to do. I think it's important, like you mentioned, it is important to have sort of what would you say,
Outlets, nearly. That's
outlets. That's the
yeah,
word.
the words finally come to my head. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely important. And it's yeah, it's challenging when you're away because you don't have other people, but you have to find a way. And I think that's part of the journey of trying to pursue professional sport. And that was kind of part of one of the reasons why I wanted to go out and play like I am now.
Hmm.
I like that challenge. That's kind of what I was looking for, is like challenging myself in that way to handle a
Hmm.
bad situation, and how can I as a person get around that. And you know, yeah, that was like not just about playing. I wanted that part of the
Yeah.
experience to challenge myself in that way, but it's not
Hmm.
easy. It's important to find something, but you know, I think if you can just not get too bogged down as well, like it's important just to let things go sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
just don't sweat the small stuff, as my mother used to say to me quite a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Out of interest, what's the hardest part of being a professional basketball player?
Hmm. I'm still figuring that one out. But yeah, I'd say probably just consistency, like to show up every day and you know, you're there to do a job and to be able to, you know, be ready to play at all times and consistent in your approach. Like it can be a bit of a slog sometimes, like because you know, you might wake up and you might have lost a game, or you might be really tired and you're like, oh, why do I need to go out and do this now, or go to the gym and lift weights by myself, or go work on my own individual stuff. But like you know, that's the life you've chosen if you want to go out and play professionally, and you have to do it. And I think if you can have your goals set out, and you can break down your season in that kind of way, it can help you stay consistent. But I'm still
Hmm.
figuring it out. But I think that's probably a challenge, is just to keep that consistency and keep it each day. You know, show up every day, ready
Yeah.
to go.
It's nearly a skill in itself, consistency, isn't it? It's just this, like, I know there's physical skills and what we've spoken about before, cutting or, let's say, dribbling or shooting, but consistency is a skill. It's something you really have to learn. It's something I've realised since moving into coaching and the podcast is,
Mm.
it's not just something that you have, like, that you're born with. It's something you develop over time, and it's, you just learn to be consistent as you would learn to dribble or learn to shoot.
Yeah, definitely. And like I think I when I say consistent anyways, like I don't mean it's that like every shot you take needs to go in or whatever. You
Yeah.
know, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days, and you have that with everything if it's the coaching or anything. And it's just, I guess, if you can be consistent through all of that, if you know that it's going to be good and bad, and you at least you know that control what you can control and be consistent in your approach, like it is a good skill to have, and it's not easy. And something that we journey with, I think. And I think that's why sport in general is good for everybody, because it challenges you in that way when things are going bad. How can you stick to your guns and get around it?
Exactly. Out of interest, what would be your personal definition of success?
That's a good question. Yeah, there's like, for me anyways, I feel like there's a couple of levels to that. Like obviously on the surface you've got winning and losing and that kind of thing. And if you can win or achieve whatever it is on the court, points or whatever it is you've set out, that's success. But like I think on a deeper level, not to get too philosophical, but like I think if you are, well, for me, anyways, if I'm being challenged and I'm like challenging myself intellectually or physically or in whatever way, and I'm working towards that and, trying to improve myself each day, I feel like that's successful in a way. Like if I can just say, okay, well, I've put in effort today and I'm a better person than I was the day before,
Hmm.
then I think that's being successful. That's my definition.
Brilliant. Very good. So I'm going to move on to the sideline seven. It's the same seven questions at the end of every episode. Question one: what is your favorite quote?
Favorite quote. I spoke to you about this before, and
Yeah,
it's still the same quote. I don't like usually have favorite ones, but if I see something that I like, I might write it down for a while. And this one is still, I mentioned to you before, it's still the one I like at the moment, and it's a Chinese proverb, and it says, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now."
yeah,
So I like that one because I suppose you can take many meanings from it. But for me, it was a case of I wanted to go out and play abroad and I wanted to do that. I could have done it earlier and it might have been a better time, but second best time to do it was now, and I did it. So
yeah.
that's why I like it.
Exactly. I actually have it added to. I have a couple of notes in the front of my notebook, and I've added that one too because I really liked it.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Question two: what's the best sporting event you've been to?
Best sporting event. I was lucky enough to go to the FIBA World Cup, the FIBA Basketball World Cup in China in 2019. I was there with my old job, and the tournament happened to be on while I was there. And I got to go to a couple of games. And it was funny that one of my coaches at Barking Abbey was the assistant coach for the Spanish team, and they actually won the competition. So I got to see two or three of their games. So that was really cool. That was probably my best so far. But I've been to a few NBA games too. I'm very lucky. Like I caught a playoff game once or twice. So
Very good.
yeah, it's hard. Yeah, a few of them.
Is there any particular standout game for you as playing?
Oh, that's a good question too. Um, let me think. Let me think. I suppose like, well, my first game here playing professionally, that's a huge one for me. I'll always remember that. But before that, probably one of the national All Ireland things we won at underage, probably.
Yeah, very good. Question three: what's been the biggest setback or challenge so far in your career, and how did you react to it?
Well, if you will, I might tell a short story about
Yeah, go
this.
for it.
I'm lucky that I haven't had like a whole lot of injuries and that kind of. I've had a few which obviously come with their own setbacks and challenges, but the
Mm,
most recent actually was last year when I made the first decision to go abroad and
mhm.
play. I was yeah, working for a team, playing for a team in Germany as well, in another part of the country, same level as I'm at now, but in a different
Okay.
conference. And obviously COVID hit. Well, COVID had already hit, and I knew that that could potentially throw a spanner in my season, which it eventually did. So my season was postponed first. So I was hanging about in Germany, and it wasn't looking good. And I had just left my job to go out and play basketball. And I was thinking, okay, I knew this could happen, but it has happened now. Did I make a mistake? Should I just pack it all in now and just go off working? And
Yeah.
it was February, so like it was late into the season. The season was supposed to start in September, and I was still in Germany. I was in lockdown, and I was thinking, oh God, like the season hadn't officially been cancelled, so that's why I was hanging on.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I didn't know what to do. And this is what I want to say to you is that you released a podcast at that time, February, with Adrian O'Sullivan. And I remember to this day, like I saw the podcast pop up and I said, "Oh, I'd love to give that a listen because I know Adrian. I had played with him on national teams and against him and that, and he had been playing at that level the previous season. So, and I knew
Oh, okay.
he was
That
in
was his.
regionally, yeah, he was in
Okay.
Germany the season before, exactly the level that I was supposed to be playing in, and I knew then he was playing in Spain at a higher level again, and I thought, oh yeah, I can't wait to listen to this. And I was walking to the shop in lockdown in Germany not knowing what I was going to do. And I listened to that podcast, you and Adrian having a chat, and I said to myself, like, no, like, don't give up now because, like, listen to this, like, they're having a great chat, and Adrian's done so well. And I said to myself, I've already made the decision now, like, just stick with it. Like, I listened to the podcast, and I said to myself, right, if he can do it, I can just stick with it another while. Maybe something will come up. And I said to myself, like, maybe, it's just kind of a joke. I was thinking maybe, like, Orla will ask you to do a podcast in the future because,
And here we are.
you'll have achieved it. And here we are. So, that
That's
was a
class.
challenge for me at the time, because I didn't know if I'd pack it in or not. And thanks to you and your podcast, it helped me make the decision to keep pushing. And, I'm here now. So thank you.
That's cool. That's cool. That's when people ask me what's success in the page, that's answered. That's nearly tied. As I have two answers that are
Okay.
tied, and that's one of them. Because that means a lot to me. So thanks for telling that story. I really appreciate it.
Oh,
Kind
well.
of on the flip side, then, what's your biggest achievement on or off the court?
Um, Biggest achievement on or off the court, I'm going to go with actually signing the contract and
Hmm.
playing professionally. And I know some of the other guests have used that as well. When I heard it first, I didn't fully grasp or I didn't fully appreciate
Yeah.
what they meant by that. But actually, I do think that's probably my biggest achievement. I've been successful and I've achieved some other things. I'm very like happy to have achieved some other things in my life,
Hmm.
but this was just really sweet to achieve because I really like set out the goal and I worked on it and it was a big dream of mine for a long time. So to
Hmm.
actually go out and do it and play on the contract and get paid to play basketball after putting so much time into it, like it's probably my biggest achievement so far.
Brilliant. Next question. What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh well, how much time have I got? So much. On the performance side, like we talked about earlier, I'd probably tell myself to try get more interested in nutrition and sports psychology, a little bit earlier, because as I said, it felt like a bit of a cheat code now to like learn about that stuff.
Hmm.
And other than that, I suppose off not thinking about performance, I'd probably just say to myself, to be open to opportunities of self-correction, and that
Okay.
kind of thing. Uh, you know, as I've traveled around and met different people, I think I've learned that like it's quite normal for us all to have sort of blind spots in how we perceive the world.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, it's normal. And like you might find yourself on the wrong side of something and you might believe something that you believe. But if you can at least challenge yourself and be open to the idea of actually, let me look at this in another way and like correct yourself on that through discussion and that kind of thing. I think that's a healthy thing to be able to do. And like with that in mind, like we've seen with some people around the world, and it sounds funny, but like with all that in mind, be careful. I would say to myself, like, be careful what you put on the internet,
Yeah.
because like, you might say something that at the time feels okay and feels like you strongly believe about something, but like the internet doesn't forget. And like
Hmm.
you don't know where you're going to be in 20 years time, and you might have said some opinion or something that you like totally have already corrected yourself on, and it doesn't reflect who you are as a person. But if you
Hmm.
put that online back when you're an 18-year-old or whatever it is, like, people, it doesn't forget and that could come back. And I think, that's probably what I would say to myself.
Yeah, that reminds me of a clip, or it was an article I read. It was a couple of years ago, and
Mm.
Barack Obama was still in office, and he was in a high school, and they said, "What advice would you give the kids?" And he said, "Delete your Facebook,
Mm.
because you can just get in trouble for loads of stuff at this point."
Yeah, and
Who would
like,
be?
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, I'd probably like, I consider myself very lucky and fortunate and even privileged to have grown up in Ireland. And
Hmm.
like, especially coming from that position of, let's say, privilege,
Yeah.
it might be easier to have a blind spot that I don't know about.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I was just going to say, yeah, it is important. And like the internet it doesn't forget, so it's like you
Yeah.
have to be careful.
Exactly. Who would be your dream dinner guest and why? And you can invite a few people to this.
Well, one person I think from a sporting point of view, anyways, that I just admire is Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
Um,
Dr. Shaquille O'Neal
Dr.
with
Shaquille
his
O'Neal. Yeah,
PhD.
that's it. Like, and that's part of the reason why I'd love to have dinner with him because like he's just incredible. Like,
Yeah.
obviously he's one of the best centers of all time, one of the best players, you know. And then what he's done off the court as well. I just feel like he'd have so much to talk about. He's really funny on TV and that kind of thing. I just think he'd be
Yeah.
a laugh. So
Yeah.
Shaquille O'Neal, Dr. O'Neal is who I'd go for dinner with if I could have had the
Brilliant.
choice.
Brilliant. Final question before I let you go. If your life was a book, what chapter would this be called?
I'll go with either betting on myself or else Basketball Jones.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. Look,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sharing that story. That means a lot to me. Very best of luck this year and beyond, and I'm looking forward to keeping in touch.
Thanks a million. Yeah, chat to you soon.
A massive thank you to Pat for joining me on the podcast today. I thoroughly enjoyed our chat and I hope you got something from it. I just want to wish him the very best of luck moving forward, both on and off the court. If you are enjoying the podcast, I'd really appreciate if you could leave a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts on Spotify, as it does help the show grow. A big thank you to ActiMet for sponsoring today's episode. As always, thank you for listening and I'll catch you in the next one.